Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Melissa Greenhill, and I'm a marketing specialist here at Encore. We've got Naomi Olson here today from eOne Solutions, and she'll be presenting on making your life easier working with SmartLists. We'll be sure to leave some room at the end for questions, so feel free to type your questions into the question panel or the chat window at any time, and Naomi will address those at the end. We will be sending out a recording afterwards to everyone who's registered for today's webinar. Now let's get started. I'm going to pass it over to you now, Naomi.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining me today. We're going to learn a little bit more about SmartView. Now, maybe you've heard of SmartView, maybe you're just a SmartList user, right? Well, we're going to talk about all of these different smarts here today. There's a lot, and I know it can be very confusing. So SmartView, really what it is, it's going to give you guys, the user, an interface where you can access all of your smart list. But we've added some really cool features that's going to save you time working with your lists on a day-to-day basis. And I'll kind of show you a little bit more about what I mean and show you ways that we can do that here today. So we are going to define all of these smarts. Like I stated, there's SmartList, SmartView, SmartList Builder. So we'll talk about what all of these means and just provide clarification on that. I am going to show you SmartView working live in action. And then, of course, any questions that you have, we can certainly address them at the end. But if you wanted to submit them in that chat pane in the bottom right-hand corner, you can certainly do so as well. Now, what are all those differences, right? So we've got SmartList. That's just your basic tool, and that comes with GP. So it's free, right? We all know what we get when it's free. So SmartList, you can access those lists that you get with GP. Now we've got SmartView. Now with SmartView, that was developed by eOne Solutions, and it does replace SmartList. So SmartView, you can access any list that you've created with SmartList Builder or any list that of course, comes with GP. Now, what is SmartList Builder? SmartList Builder allows you to create the custom lists that you would then view in SmartView. So with SmartList Builder, you're going to be able to maybe pull in some data that's sitting in GP that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. Maybe there's a field that's not available in your current list. You can grab at that data with SmartList Builder, or maybe there's some data sitting in a third-party table. We can certainly access that as well with SmartList Builder. Now, when we talk about some of the differences here between SmartList and SmartView. So SmartList, it's free. It's just your basic reporting tool. We all know what we get when it's free, right? I mean, it's slow. For some of you, maybe it does the job, but I know in terms of talking about speed, there's a customer that was using SmartList, and they were so frustrated. They would literally have to pull up their list at the beginning of day in hopes by sometime after lunchtime that these lists would be done loading. Once we implemented SmartView, they were able to pull in thousands of transactions within seconds. So there was such quite a disparity between the difference, especially when you're talking about speed. SmartList, you only have 4 filters. I don't know about you, but when I'm working with my data, I sure need more than 4 filters, which then is going to allow you to query your data and see the data that makes sense. You know, that way, let's say you have an informed business decision, you can do that. And then, of course, you're only going to get that limited data with SmartList, just with the functionality there. So SmartView, that was developed by eOne, and it does replace your SmartList. It's going to make working with your list very easy. So you've got grouping and subgrouping. You have totals right to your screen. You don't have to export to Excel anymore to get them. You still can if you choose to do that. Also, another really cool feature is maybe you have GP users who are going into GP specifically to see those lists. With SmartView, they're going to be able to access those lists outside of GP. So therefore, you can save a GP license with that. Any list that you've created with SmartList Builder, you're going to be able to see in SmartView. And then the other thing is you can open up more than one instance. So I personally, I have a few different instances of SmartView opened up, and I toggle back and forth from report to report throughout the day. All right, let me show you what really how valuable SmartView is. I want you to see it working in action here. So let's take a look and see that. So I'm going to go into GP here. And what we're going to start out with, we talked at the beginning about speed, right? So I'm going to show you firsthand in terms of how much quicker SmartView is in comparison to your SmartList. So let's pull up SmartView. And when we pull up SmartView, you're going to see it looks very similar to your SmartList. And I'm going to let's pull up the sales line items list. Now, as you can see, I was able to pull up 1,000 line items in 0.45 seconds. So everyone remember the 0.45 seconds. I'm going to go back into GP, and now I'm going to pull up SmartList. And we're going to pull up that very same list here in SmartList. So let's go to the sales. We're going to do the sales line items. And as you can see, we've only got a couple hundred line items, and it's been well over 0.45 seconds. So in terms of speed, SmartView is very, very fast. All right, let's talk a little bit about the lay of the land. So if we take a look on our left-hand side, this is where we have our tree view. So this is where you're going to be able to access any of those canned lists that you get with GP, plus any list that you've created with SmartList Builder, you're going to have access to over here as well. Moving over to the very right-hand side, here's some additional fields that we're able to pull into our data field. So let's just go ahead and pull in a few different ones. Since we're working with our sales line items list, let's pull in a few different sales fields. So let's do our sales territory. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. I can double click on the field. So if I double click on it, what it did is it just added that into our columns. Or let's say I wanted to drag and drop it, literally drag it and drop it over. And then let's also add in our sales date. I'm going to move up towards the upper top left-hand screen, and I'm going to go to the Options tab, and I'm going to hide the lists on the left-hand side, and I'm going to hide the columns on the right-hand side. This is going to give us greater visibility so we can see the data that we're working with. Now, if you can please take note here, those additional fields that we added to the very end or the very right-hand side of our columns. Now, I really don't want my sales date here. The really nice thing is this has got a drag and drop functionality. So I can literally drag this in any order of my liking. So I'm going to move the sales date here. Let's move the salesperson up front as well. So over to the left-hand side, and let's move the territory here. Now we're looking at some data, right? It's just kind of thrown at us. This data doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't tell a story per se. So let's just do some grouping and subgrouping and see if we can really have this data tell a story for us. So let's go ahead and group by our SOP type. And let's subgroup by our sales territory. So now just with a little bit of grouping and subgrouping, this data makes a little more sense. So now what we're seeing is we're seeing all of our SOP types along with grouped into different territories. So I'm going to just go to the Home tab here, and I'm going to collapse this data. And now you can literally see, so let's say I'm wanting to see all of the fulfillment orders, and it's going to break it up into the different territories. So when we're looking at our data, it makes a little more sense. So if we did have a business decision that we needed to make, we're going to have that data that we need to be able to do that. So let's go ahead and add a filter here. So if we look at the very upper right-hand corner, we've got a little caret, like a filter caret. So let's just go ahead and now I want to see only the invoices from all of the territories. So if I collapse the data and expand this, now look what we're seeing is I can literally see, I'm seeing only the invoices from all of those territories. Now that's pretty cool that I'm able to see all that literally with just a little bit of grouping and subgrouping. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed, but you also have your totals right to your screen. So not only do you have your grand total at the very bottom, but you also have your totals based upon each section as well. So I don't have to do an export to Excel to get these totals. However, I still can do that if I choose to. So you can do an export to Excel, CSV, or even PDF if you wanted to do that. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed, but when I added in this filter, so I filtered in only the invoices, what it did is it opened up what we call a filter ribbon. So if we look at the very bottom, here's a filter ribbon, this purple ribbon at the bottom, and I'm going to move over to the bottom right-hand corner. If I click on the Edit Filter button, what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to add in those unlimited filters that I talked about. So you can keep adding. There's no limit to those unlimited filters. Not only can you add the filters, but you can also add conditions to these filters. So you can do things such as and, or, is not. Maybe you want to do equals, does not equals, contains. There's just a ton of options that we have built here into this for you. One that I personally use, so if I were to go ahead and select this as my sales date, because this is a date field, there's some predefined date parameters that we have built into the tool itself. So let's say that I'm wanting to pick data from yesterday. I can literally go in here and select that. So that's something that I personally use on a day-to-day basis as well. Now, I'm going to go up to the top here under the Options tab, and I'm going to add in a Find panel. I want to find only the invoices now that have a 5 in it. I'm looking for a specific invoice. So literally, you can go ahead and search through your list, whatever criteria it is. It's going to search that based upon whatever you've typed into that search panel. So, all right, I was looking for this invoice here. So I can literally double click on the invoice, and what it's going to do is it's going to pull it up to screen. So I don't have to go back into my menu structure to do that. I can literally just double click on it. Now, when we talk about the internal SmartView versus the external, the one difference that we have is if you're working with your SmartLists outside of GP, you're not going to have the ability to pull up any of these transaction windows. So me being able to double click on this invoice, you're not going to have the ability to do that if you're using the external functionality of SmartLists. Other than that, the tools work exactly the same. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. Now we talked about, I showed you how fast SmartView was. I showed you how we can easily add in those fields or columns. We did the grouping and subgrouping. I also showed you how we can filter and do those unlimited filters, and also talked about our totals to our screen. Let's just go ahead and do a quick export to Excel. And if I do that, what it's going to do is it's going to keep all of the headers and footers just as they had it prior to the export. So when I do this export to Excel, we should see everything just as we've seen on the screen, as you can see, which we do, and how it kept all of the headers and footers as well, and how fast it was. So if you do your exports to Excel, it's something that works very easily and fast as well. All right, now let's say this is a list that I use every single day. and I really don't want to have to go back and set up all of my groupings and subgroupings. I want to be able to just kind of take off where I left yesterday. So if we look at the very upper left-hand corner, you're going to see a star. So with this star, what I'm able to do is I'm able to go ahead and save this list as my favorite. So let's just go ahead and save this as Encore. Now, when you save the list, you're going to be able to define who has access to view it. So you can define it based upon a specific user within your organization, or you can also base it off of a specific role. So maybe I want only those account managers to be able to see this list. Also, if you have more than one company in GP, you can certainly define which company that you want this associated with. In this case, I'm just going to pick all companies and all users. Let's go ahead and save this. And now let's add our lists back to the left-hand side. Now, if I were to click off of it, so this is that original list that we pulled up, really, with all of this data just kind of thrown at us, right? If I were to go back to our Encore list, which has all of our groupings and subgroupings, now this one is our list that we can now use on a daily basis in terms of it's got all of those groupings and everything set up just as we had saved it. Now, the other thing I want to mention here, if you look at this modify button at the very top, if you have SmartList Builder installed and are using it, this modify button is going to bring you right into the builder. Now, SmartView and SmartList Builder, they are independent tools. However, they're both developed by eOne Solutions, and when you combine them, they're very powerful, especially when you're working with your GP data. They're going to be one of the best reporting tools that you're going to get with GP. You're going to be able to go ahead and pull in those fields and have access to that data right on the fly with SmartList Builder. All right, I'm going to close out of here, and let's go back to our SmartView list. Now, I know I showed you quite a few things, right, in terms of all of the different features and functionality that you're going to get with SmartView that you're not going to get with your SmartList. Now, what I want you guys all to do is maybe there's some specific pain points that you currently have when you're working with your list on a day-to-day basis with SmartList. I would love to hear maybe some of those pain points, and maybe we can talk about ways that we can resolve them here with SmartView today. While you guys are thinking about some of those pain points, I'm going to move back to PowerPoint here, and we're going to talk a little bit about some other resources as well. So let's talk a little bit about pricing. There's a couple different pricing options that we give you. You can purchase it as a one-time purchase of $2,500. And with that, there's a 17.5% annual enhancement. Otherwise, you can go with a monthly subscription-based pricing. It's $178 per month, and that's pay as you go, no contracts. Or we do have bundle prices available too. So maybe you want to add that SmartList Builder and SmartView, which it would really benefit you, especially working with your GP data, to have both of them. You can certainly go ahead and purchase both View and SmartList Builder. So if we pull up our website here and take a look at the bundle prices, you can literally purchase SmartView and the SmartList Builder bundle for $4,000, and then that's plus you have a 17.5% annual enhancement that gets added onto that. All right, now let's just go ahead. I want to open it up for questions. I also want to hear about some of those pain points maybe that you're having with your SmartList. Maybe you have a question if it can do a certain thing. Let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer them. The one other thing I do want to mention here too, while you guys are maybe thinking about some of those questions or pain points, is we do offer a 30-day free trial. So you can certainly download the tool. So let's say you're on GP 2018. You're going to want to install SmartView 2018. you can use it for 30 days without needing any registration keys. So download the tool, use it, get a feel for it, see if it provides you value. Um, I'm pretty sure once you go ahead and use it, you're going to realize the value that it does give you, and you're not going to be able to go back to your smart list. So I do want to go ahead and open it up for questions. Did we have any questions that I can help out with today?
I'm not seeing any questions in the question pane right now. If anyone wants to, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. So just let me know because I've got everybody muted right now. But I guess if nobody has any questions, what are your main questions that people get or major pain points you find?
A lot of it really can vary, but speed is a huge one. So in terms of just
Mhm.
being able to pull in those lists, a lot of people have issues with SmartList being able to just load those lists and pull in the data. Also, in terms of just having the functionality of being able to group and subgroup, your data, to be able to tell a story, to be able to, have access to the data that you're truly wanting to see, that seems to be a big one. Um, so I guess it can vary, but those are some of the big ones that we get. Also, a lot of times people do ask, so if they're currently using SmartList and they have favorites in SmartList, are they going to be able to see them in SmartView? And the answer is yes. So you can literally, we do have like an import tool that will allow you to import all of your favorites from SmartList over to SmartView without any hassles.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions, but if anyone has any after the fact, I can send out an email and I can send your email address with it so they can contact you or they can contact us.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah,
I do want to thank everybody for joining my session today. And if there is anything that comes up, or if you're wanting to get help getting that 30-day trial set up, Encore is one of our great partners. They can certainly help you out with that, or by all means, we're here to help as well.
perfect. All right. Well, thanks again, Naomi. We're really happy you could join us today. And I'll be sending out that email soon with the recording and with that info. And then you're doing another webinar, I think, in November. So maybe I'll include a registration link for that as well, in case anyone is interested in attending that one.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Great. Great. Thanks very much.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.